Today we're going to do a close read of The Bike by Gary Soto. And before you begin, make sure that you have the text pulled up on a separate device or a separate browser tab so that you can read along and do the annotations as we read together. And while you're reading, you will annotate for the following: point of view, diction and word choice, and tone. So, point of view. One question to ask while you're reading is, how does the narrator's point of view contribute to the conflict and influence the plot? So we're going to find out really soon that this story is being told from the perspective of a 5-year-old little boy, and it's going to be very important to understand that the fact that he's 5 years old is definitely going to contribute to the conflict and influence the plot. And plot is underlined because this should be reviewed for you guys. The plot is any and everything that exists from beginning to end in our story. Diction and word choice. What words did the authors choose to illustrate the story was written from a 5-year-old's perspective? Okay, the author is going to have to convince us that this is a 5-year-old little boy going through this plot. Okay, so he's going to choose certain words to let us know. The little boy's attitude towards the situation is also going to give us his perspective. And remember, guys, perspective creates tone. Okay, so a question to ask when looking for tone or reading and looking for tone: which words does the author use to help the reader understand the little boy throughout the text? The Bike by Gary Soto. My first bite got me nowhere, though the shadow I cast as I pedaled raced along my side. The leaves of the bird-filled trees stirred a warm breeze, and litter scuttled out of the way. Our orange cats looked on from the fence, their tails up like antennas. I opened my mouth, and wind tickled the back of my throat. When I squinted, I could see past the end of the block. My hair flicked like black fire, and I thought I was pretty cool riding up and down the block, age 5, in my brother's hand-me-down shirt. So we're going to stop right here, and the first thing I want you to look at is I want you to look at the pronouns being used, the my and the I, and this should be reviewed for most of you, but we all know that this is first person. Okay? So this particular narrative is being told from a first-person perspective, or the fact that it is a narrative would automatically make it first person, but I wanted you guys to notice that. Okay? So the first thing we're going to do is let's look at some of the diction, the word choice. And what really stood out to me is that second sentence: the leaves of bird-filled trees stirred a warm breeze, and litter scuttled out of the way. Our orange cats looked on from the fence, their tails up like antennas. Okay, so even though this isn't something that we were particularly looking at, I want you guys to notice that right here, the author is using this particular diction to create imagery. Okay, he wants us to visualize what's going on. Okay, so he's using words that appeal to the senses, or just even our visual senses, the orange cats, right? The bird-filled trees. Okay, so this creates imagery. Okay, and then to go back to what we're actually going to be annotating for, let's take a look at how we know this is being told from maybe a young boy's perspective. So what caught my attention is when he said, my hair flicked like black fire, and I thought I was pretty cool riding up and down the block, age 5, in my brother's hand-me-down shirt. So I'm going to highlight that. Okay. All right, I'm just going to write a little note to the side that this kind of lets me know what this young boy is feeling, right? How does he feel about himself, right? He's kind of really just like, hey, I feel cool, right? So he was pretty cool riding, and then he's really smiling, I guess, because he is in his brother's hand-me-down shirt. So there's a sense of pride right here, okay? Sense of pride. Going up and down the block was one thing, but taking the first curb out of sight of Mom in the house was another. I was scared of riding on Sarah Street. My mom said hungry dogs lived on that street, and red anger lived in their eyes. Their throats were hard with extra bones from biting kids on bikes, she said. Okay, so let's look at the word choice in terms of the perspective. So once again, the author's trying to convince us that this story is being told from a 5-year-old's point of view. So let's go through and look at some things that maybe a 5-year-old would say in comparison to a teenager or an adult. So going up and down the block was one thing, but taking the first curve out of sight of mom, right? Out of sight of mom. Well, parents are protectors. So this is a little kid, right? So there's a little danger from being outside of his mom's sight lines. I was scared of riding on Sarah Street. I was scared of riding. Okay, my mom said hungry dogs lived on that street and red anger lived in their eyes. Their throats were hard with extra bones from biting kids on bikes, she said. Okay, so now we're going to look at word choice as it connects to the tone, okay? So the tone so far, right, in this particular one is he's letting us know that he's scared. He is scared. He says, I was scared of riding on Sarah Street. So if we look at hungry dogs lived on that street, red anger lived in their eyes. Their throats were hard with extra bones from biting kids on bikes. Those are words to help create the tone of fear and why this little boy was afraid of riding on that. But I took the corner anyway. I didn't believe Mom. Once she said that pointing at rainbows caused freckles, and after rain had moved in and drenched the sheets, after the sparrows flitted into the lawn, a rainbow washed over the junkyard and reached the dark barrels of Coleman pickle. I stood at the window, looking out, amazed and devious, with the devilish horns of my butch haircut standing up. From behind the windows, I let my finger slowly uncurl like a bean plant rising from earth. I uncurled it, then curled it back and made a fist. I should remember this day, I told myself. So we're going to stop right here because this paragraph is, it's really cute and it's really important to show just how different a 5-year-old views certain things. So it starts with him saying, he's not listening to his mother. Now, his mother's told him that there are these dogs and they're going to get you if you turn down the street, but he doesn't believe her. So now we have to figure out, why wouldn't this 5-year-old believe that? 5-year-olds are pretty easy to scare. Okay, so we see that the mom, right, she tells him that pointing at rainbows causes freckles, okay? Really silly. We know this isn't true. And the little boy, right, he's kind of got this sneaky side. He's going to challenge his mother's rules or what his mother says. And so look at what he does, okay? And I'm going to highlight to show this a 5-year-old perspective. He's like, okay, it rains, there's a rainbow. And he says, from behind the window, I let my finger curl like a bean plant rising from earth. I uncurled it and curled it back and made a fist. So he's challenging his mother in this very innocent, innocuous way. He's going to point at this rainbow, even though his mom said, if you do it, you're going to get freckles. And freckles aren't a big deal, I'm assuming, but he does it anyway, right? And if you actually look at how he describes himself, where he says amazed and devious, look at these words, amazed and devious, right? He's a little troublemaker. Okay, so he's going against what his mother says and he's pointing at this rainbow and he says, I should remember this day, I told myself. So right here to the side, I want you guys to kind of infer what happened or didn't happen to him when he pointed at this rainbow. So pause right here. Okay. I pedaled my squeaky bike around the curve onto Sarah Street, but returned immediately. I braked and looked back where I had gone. My face was hot, my hair sweaty, but nothing scary seemed to happen. The street had looked like our street. Parked cars, tall trees, a sprinkler hissing on a lawn, and an old woman bending over her garden. I started again, and again I rode the curve, my eyes open as wide as they could go. After a few circle 8s, I returned to our street. There ain't no dogs, I told myself. I began to think that maybe this was like one of those false rainbow warnings. So the little boy, right, now he's kind of challenging his own fears. He's testing the waters, right? The first time he did it, not too many consequences can come from pointing at a rainbow other than a freckle, but he's been told there are dogs on this street. And he's gone down the street and nothing's happened to him. Okay, so what I want you to do, go back and reread this paragraph. And I want you to highlight all of the diction the author used to show us how this young boy feels about this particular moment and how he feels about the advice his mother gave him. You can pause right here. I turned my bike around and rode a few times in front of our house, just in case Mom was looking for me. I called out, "Hi, Mom, I haven't gone anywhere." I saw her face in the window, curlers piled high, and she waved a dish towel at me. I waved back, and when she disappeared, I again tore my bike around the curve onto Sarah Street. I was free. The wind flicked my hair and cooled my ears. I did figure eights, rode up the curbs, and into lawns, bumped into trees, and rode over garden hose 100 times because I liked the way the water sprang up from the sprinkler after the pressure of my tires. I stopped when I saw a kid my age come down a porch. His machinery for getting around was a tricycle. Big baby, I thought, and said, "You can run over my leg with your trike if you want." I laid down on the sidewalk, and the kid with fingers in his mouth said, "Okay." So in this paragraph, let's focus on the point of view, right? Let's highlight some things that let us know that this is being told from a young kid's perspective. Let's see. I did figure eights, rode up curbs into lawns, bumped into trees, and rode over a garden hose 100 times because I liked the way the water sprang up from the sprinkler after the pressure of my tires. Okay. And this one I thought was hilarious. So he obviously sees another kid, another 5-year-old, but this 5-year-old's on a tricycle. He's on a bike. So he's calling this other 5-year-old a big baby because, he's riding a bike. And he turns to the kid and says, "You can run over my leg with my trike if you want." All right? He's feeling himself. So not only is this really funny because it's something a 5-year-old would say, it kind of also lets us know his perspective of himself. Like, he thinks he is just really hot stuff. He thinks he is tough, right? Okay. So what I want you to do is I want you to notice, two things. First thing is I want you to notice how there's a shift, how he's kind of doubting first he's scared from what his mother tells her. Then he kind of doubts his mom because, she may have been wrong about the freckles and the rainbow thing. And then he's a little apprehensive about going down Sarah Street, but there's a completely different tone in this paragraph. He is now carefree and living his best life. So what I want you to do is go through and underline or highlight any diction that the author uses to establish this new carefree tone in this paragraph. You can pause right. He backed up slowly, like a tank, advanced. I folded my arms behind my head and watched a jay swoop by with what looked like a cracker in its beak. When the tire climbed over my ankle and sparks of pain cut through my skin, I sat up quickly, my eyes flinging tears like a sprinkler. The boy asked, "Did it hurt?" "No," I said, almost crying. The kid could see that it did. He could see my face strained to hold back a sob, 2 tears dropping like dimes into the dust. He pedaled away on his bucket of bolts and tossed it in his front lawn. He looked back before climbing the stairs and disappeared into the house. I pulled up my pants leg. My ankle was purple, large and hot, and the skin was flaked like wood shavings. I patted spit onto it and laid back down. I cried because no one was around, the tears stirring up a lather on my dirty face. I rose to my feet and walked around trying to make the ankle feel better. I got on my bicycle and pedaled mostly with the good leg. A few tears still on my eyelashes evaporated as I rode. I realized I would live. I did nothing fancy on the way home, no figure eights, no wiggling of the handlebars, no hands in my pockets, no closed eye moments. The sudden bark of a dog scared me, and my pants leg fed into the chain, the bike coming to an immediate stop. I tugged at the cuff, gnashed and oil black until rubbing sounds made me quit trying. I fell to the ground, bike and all, and let the tears lather my face again. I then dragged the bike home with the pants leg in the chain. There was nothing to do except lie in the dirt because Mom saw me round the corner from Sarah Street. I lay down when she came out with the belt, and I didn't blame the dog or that stupid rainbow. Okay, so what I'm going to have you do right here is go back and reread those last few paragraphs. I think it's paragraph 6 through 9. And I want you to kind of document the tone change. So we have that carefree from the last one that you had to annotate. Document the change or the shift in tone from that paragraph to the end of the text. And then I want you to also underline or highlight, how do we know that this little boy has just accepted his fate, right? It's all over, and we want proof that, he's just accepted the punishment that's going to happen to him. So go ahead and pause right here. Now that you are done with the annotation, you are going to make sure that you save this in Google Drive in the notes and annotation folder. You are going to submit this as part of your grade, and you can also use this to take your comprehension assessment over the text as well.